Welcome to our channel. In today's video, we'll explore the remarkable journey that made him a legend both in and out of the ring, from his early days in the WWF, through his memorable feuds and partnerships, to his lasting legacy in the wrestling world. Join us as we pay tribute to the triumphs, challenges, and ultimate tragedy surrounding one of WWE's most iconic performers. Paul Orndorff's passing at age 71 sent shockwaves through the wrestling community and beyond. He had been grappling with a long-time illness for years, and during his final days, he was reportedly in a very troubling state that greatly concerned his family and friends. His son later confirmed that Orndorff suffered from late-stage dementia, a diagnosis that shed light on the severity of the mental and physical struggles he had been enduring. Late-stage dementia can often be accompanied by significant memory loss, confusion, and changes in personality, all factors that weighed heavily not just on Paul himself, but on those closest to him. While dementia was a key contributor to Orndorff's decline, it wasn't the only major health hurdle he faced. In 2011, he was diagnosed with cancer. Fortunately, at that time, he managed to overcome it and went into remission, demonstrating his resilience and fighting spirit. The fact that he was able to prevail over a life-threatening disease like cancer spoke volumes about his determination, a characteristic that was evident throughout his wrestling career. However, the victory over cancer was just a temporary reprieve from the broader set of health complications that would follow. Before his retirement, Orndorff had also sustained a series of injuries that undoubtedly contributed to his deteriorating condition later in life. Wrestling is a physically demanding profession, and some athletes experience the consequences of their in-ring careers long after they stop performing. Orndorff's neck injury in 2000 was particularly serious, yet he managed to continue living life on his own terms, even wrestling one last match in 2017 at the remarkable age of 67, far beyond the age at which most would have hung up their boots. There was also a legal dimension to Orndorff's health journey. He had been part of a class action lawsuit against WWE, which claimed that numerous wrestlers suffered long-term neurological issues, including brain damage and related problems, due to repeated head injuries sustained over their careers. The lawsuit highlighted how the physical toll of professional wrestling could lead to issues like concussions, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, and other irreversible conditions. Though this legal effort was dismissed in 2018, it underscored the ongoing conversation about wrestler safety and the potential need for improved protocols and medical support within the industry. In the grand scheme of his legacy, Paul Orndorff's battle with illness can be viewed as an unfortunate coda to a life defined by ambition, strength, and tenacity. While his final years were troubled by deteriorating mental and physical health, these challenges serve as a reminder of how demanding professional wrestling can be on its participants. His willingness to fight illnesses, injuries, and personal setbacks until the end showed that even off the mat, Mr. Wonderful's fighting spirit never truly faded. The emotional toll his condition took on his family, friends, and fans can't be overstated. In professional wrestling, performers build strong personal connections with their audience by showcasing not only their athletic prowess, but also their charisma, promos, and the genuine passion they bring to the ring. As a result, fans often feel a close bond with wrestlers. The news of Orndorff's poor health, followed by his passing, was felt personally by many who had watched him in the 1980s, 1990s, and beyond. While this chapter of Paul Orndorff's life ended tragically, it's important to remember that his career spanned numerous historic eras, and his influence on professional wrestling will live on. Paul Orndorff's journey to stardom began with the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, in 1983. Before that, he had wrestled in various territories, honing his craft and developing the athletic style that set him apart. However, it was his signing with Vince McMahon's expanding WWF that catapulted him into the national spotlight. This was a time of transition for the wrestling business. Territorial promotions were starting to give way to a more centralized form of entertainment led by McMahon's vision of the WWF. Orndorff, with his imposing physique, intense persona, and undeniable presence, was an excellent fit for the mainstream push the WWF sought in the mid-1980s. He made his official WWF debut on the mat in January 1984 under the guidance of Roddy Piper, who served as both a manager and an invaluable ally. Piper, already known for his eccentric charisma and top-tier mic skills, famously dubbed Paul Orndorff Mr. Wonderful. This moniker was inspired not just by Orndorff's impressive build, but by his confident, almost arrogant ring persona, one that resonated with fans who either loved to cheer him as a brash athlete or boo him when he played the villain. The nickname stuck instantly and would follow him throughout his entire career, becoming one of the most recognizable monikers in wrestling history. Orndorff's first WWF match took place during a highly significant event. On the same evening that Hulk Hogan defeated the Iron Sheik for the WWF World Heavyweight title, January 23, 1984, at Madison Square Garden. This was not only symbolic of the major shift happening in professional wrestling, Hogan's victory heralded a new era of mainstream wrestling superstardom. It also placed Orndorff in the company of major players from the very start. Hogan's win that night transformed him into the face of the Federation, and Orndorff immediately found himself brushing up against that pinnacle by becoming one of the first challengers to Hogan's newly won title. Although Hogan successfully dispatched Orndorff in their initial encounters, Orndorff refused to fade into the background. Instead, he embarked on a series of matches against other notable WWF figures, including Intercontinental Champion Tito Santana. This era of wrestling was rife with unique characters and storylines. From high flyers to technical experts, each wrestler had a distinct identity that contributed to the WWF's explosive popularity. Orndorff's style, combining raw power, a chiseled physique, and relentless aggression, allowed him to stand toe-to-toe with the best in the business. It's worth noting that the mid-1980s WWF product was heavily storyline-driven, with managers playing crucial roles in shaping the directions of their protégés. Roddy Piper, whose explosive personality made him both hero and villain at different times, served as the perfect foil or ally in various feuds involving Orndorff. Piper's presence gave Orndorff a spotlight from the get-go, enabling Mr. Wonderful to engage in storylines that would quickly elevate him from a newcomer to a key player. Beyond the ring, Orndorff's character was also shaped by the demands of the wrestling media. WWF programming such as Championship Wrestling and All-Star Wrestling, as well as various house shows, provided him multiple platforms to refine his gimmick and ring style. His interviews often emphasized his physical superiority, self-confidence, and willingness to confront any challenge. Such elements of his persona made him an engaging figure for fans, and it wasn't long before he became entangled in larger feuds that would define his WWF tenure. This rapid ascent within the Federation demonstrated that Orndorff had the it factor, a combination of athleticism, character work, and big match presence. Few wrestlers stepped into the WWF at that time and immediately engaged top talents on such a high-profile stage. Orndorff's success story underscores his natural aptitude for the business. He was never merely a body in the ring. He had the ability to command attention whether he was dominating a match or selling an opponent's offense. From a broader perspective, Orndorff's early WWF career arrived during a time when the industry was experiencing unprecedented national exposure. Thanks to innovations like closed-circuit television and later pay-per-view, the WWF could broadcast major events to a wider audience. For Orndorff, this spelled out endless possibilities. Every main event he participated in, every feud he elevated, contributed to the massive wave of wrestling fandom that swept the United States and later the world during the 1980s. While many wrestlers struggled to adapt to this newfound emphasis on television production and media interviews, Orndorff thrived, further cementing the brand recognition of Mr. Wonderful. When Piper clobbered Jimmy Snuka on the set of Piper's Pit, Orndorff, assisted by Bob Orton Jr., teamed up with the Rowdy One in his fights. Orndorff and Piper often faced Snuka and the Tonga Kid in tag team competitions in 1984. Piper's assault on Cyndi Lauper pitted Orndorff and Piper against Hulk Hogan, and Mr. T. Hogan's feud with Piper meant Orndorff was once again back in the main event picture. He defeated Tony Atlas at the War to settle the score and then played a major role in the main event. The fallout from that match led to the creation of WrestleMania, with Hogan and Mr. T facing off against Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff in the main event. Orton's interference at the end of that match ended up backfiring when he accidentally hit Orndorff with a cast on his arm. That allowed Hulk Hogan to pin Orndorff and win the match for his team. Shortly after that, Orndorff solidified his babyface reputation by publicly firing his manager, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Orndorff and Hogan started teaming up to feud with Piper and Orton, going head-to-head with them in tag team competitions across the nation. Their rivalry continued to build in intensity until Hogan began defending his title against other wrestlers. Orndorff faced both Orton and Piper in individual competitions, typically without a conclusive outcome. After firing his manager Bobby Heenan, the Brain placed a $25,000 bounty on Orndorff, payable to anyone capable of injuring him. When nobody succeeded at it, Heenan upped the bounty to $50,000. One of the first contenders who tried to claim the new highly lucrative bonus was Roddy Piper, but their matches got so crazy that Bruno Sammartino was appointed as a referee in hopes of keeping the peace. However, Sammartino became the new target of Orton and Piper's rage, which led to Orndorff and Sammartino teaming up to take them on. Orndorff ended up joining forces with a variety of wrestlers in his fights with Piper and Orton, including the legendary brawler Andre the Giant. In February 1986, Bobby Heenan seized the opportunity during a match between Hulk Hogan and Don Muraco to have his buddy King Kong Bundy attack Hogan, setting the stage for their WrestleMania 2 match. While Hogan fought off Bundy victoriously, Orndorff fought Don Muraco in a match that ended in a double countout. Orndorff's next big feud was with ADRIAN ADONIS, who took every opportunity to mock him, calling him Hulk Jr., and saying he had gone soft ever since he teamed up with Hogan. The next time Hogan and Orndorff teamed up against the Moondogs, Orndorff wrestled the majority of the match by himself in a bold attempt to upstage Hogan. The following week, during a match where Hogan and Orndorff took on the duo of Big John Studd and King Kong Bundy, Orndorff accidentally collided with Hogan and was thrown out of the ring. When Studd and Bundy then started to attack Hogan, Orndorff did nothing at first to help him out. It wasn't until the team had Hogan in a compromised position that Orndorff chose to re-enter the ring to fend them off. He then helped Hogan to his feet and raised his hand in the air, before giving him a clothesline, followed by a piledriver. After that, Orndorff reunited with his former manager Bobby Heenan and again feuded with Hulk Hogan. After several matches with no clear outcome, Hogan and Orndorff clashed in a steel cage match on Saturday night's main event. Hogan ended up winning that match, which ended their feud. During the feud with Hogan, Orndorff seriously injured his right arm in a weightlifting accident. Since he was in the middle of his profitable run with Hogan, he didn't take the time off to have the surgery he needed to properly treat it. After his feud with Hogan ended, Orndorff was forced to work a reduced schedule for several months. While he was away from the WWF, Heenan brought in a new man, ravishing Rick Rude, to take Orndorff's place. Orndorff returned to the ring to both fire Heenan once again and to feud with Rick Rude. He then took Oliver Humperdinck on as his new manager for his fight with Rude and Heenan. His last major appearance was at the first Survivor Series on November 26, 1987, when he teamed up with Hulk Hogan, Bam Bam Bigelow, Ken Patera, and Don Muraco to take on Andre the Giant, the One-Man Gang, King Kong Bundy, Butch Reed, and Rick Rude. Early on in the match, Rude eliminated Orndorff with a roll-up. Orndorff retired in early 1988, in part because of his arm injury. He then started running his own bowling alley in Fayetteville, Arkansas. While away from the ring, it was reported he had died, but he was far from dead. During that time, away from the sport, he recovered from his injury and got back in shape. In 1990, Paul Orndorff staged a comeback to the wrestling scene, first by wrestling a series of matches against Kerry Von Erich on the independent circuit. This period served as a proving ground, allowing him to test the status of his arm and overall endurance without the pressure of a major promotion. Von Erich, himself part of a storied wrestling family, was a compelling adversary for Orndorff, representing a mixture of legacy and raw talent. Their matches highlighted Orndorff's remarkable resilience. He was no longer in his physical prime, but he could still deliver gripping, hard-hitting contests that resonated with audiences. Shortly afterward, Orndorff signed with World Championship Wrestling, WCW. During his initial run, he was introduced as part of a group called the Dudes with Attitudes, which featured other top-tier talents. The group's name might sound whimsical, but it played into WCW's attempts to brand itself as the edgier alternative to the WWF. Although the stable was short-lived, it placed Orndorff in the company of notable personalities like Sting, Lex Luger, and the Steiner brothers, all of whom were crucial to WCW's product. Despite stepping away later in 1990, Orndorff returned to WCW in late 1992, determined to make his mark in a company that was steadily growing with the backing of media mogul Ted Turner. This second WCW stint became more memorable as Orndorff engaged in a series of feuds that showcased he could still be a heel with real heat. In 1993, Orndorff crossed paths with Cactus Jack Mick Foley, known for his daredevil stunts and unorthodox brawling style. After Orndorff emerged victorious in one match, Harley Race, legendary as both a former multi-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion and a seasoned manager, declared Orndorff to be his new chosen man. It was a storyline endorsement that illustrated Orndorff's continued credibility. However, the feud with Cactus Jack soon intensified, culminating in wild, brutal showdowns. Cactus Jack's willingness to endure punishment created an environment where Orndorff's old-school toughness shone through, and fans remained on the edges of their seats to see how far each match might escalate. One of the pivotal moments in this feud occurred when Cactus Jack pinned Orndorff in a Thunderdome match, setting off a chain reaction of intense encounters that eventually led to Cactus Jack's triumph at Super Brawl III. Even in defeat, Orndorff's presence elevated the storyline, underscoring how his ring psychology and disciplined approach contrasted with Foley's chaotic style. The clash of these different philosophies made their rivalry one of the standout feuds in early 1990 WCW. Another career milestone came when Orndorff participated in a 16-man tournament for the WCW World Television Championship, a title often used to highlight wrestlers with exceptional in-ring skills. Battling talents like Johnny B. Bad, Too Cold Scorpio, and Eric Watts, Orndorff demonstrated that he remained a serious contender despite the wear and tear of his earlier injuries. Ultimately, he captured the WCW World Television title, a testament to his enduring magnetism and ring acumen. As TV champion, Orndorff maintained a steady presence on WCW programming. He embodied the old-school ethos of meticulous ring strategy, storytelling, and personal bravado, which set him apart from the more flamboyant or high-flying performers populating WCW's mid-card. Defending the title against a range of challengers, Orndorff reminded fans why he had once been a headliner in the WWF. The intensity, the psychology, and the persona of Mr. Wonderful still resonated. On August 18, 1993, he lost the TV title to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat at Clash of the Champions 24, a loss that signaled a shift in WCW's narrative focus. Steamboat's victory capitalized on his own status as a beloved babyface and ring technician. Orndorff, for his part, retreated from the limelight, eventually retiring from in-ring competition once more. This time, he embraced a behind-the-scenes role, managing the WCW Power Plant, a training facility designed to groom new generations of wrestlers. As a trainer, Orndorff imparted the old-school fundamentals to younger talent, including the natural-born thrillers, a stable of up-and-coming stars in the late 1990s and early 2000s. At a time when wrestlers increasingly emphasize flash and acrobatics, Orndorff stressed fundamentals like ring awareness, proper holds, selling, and psychology. This mentoring phase of his career underscored the deep reservoir of wrestling knowledge he possessed and his desire to pass it on. From a historical standpoint, Orndorff's WCW chapters reveal a performer who adapted to wrestling's evolving landscape. While the WWF of the 1980s had been all about cartoonish characters and mainstream extravaganzas, WCW often presented itself as a more athletic alternative, especially under the influence of the NWA tradition. Orndorff bridged these contrasting eras, demonstrating that he could excel in both the flashy WWF environment and the more sport-oriented WCW ring. On February 3, 2005, he was announced as one of the inductees for the class of 2005's WWE Hall of Fame. He was inducted on April 2nd at the Universal Amphitheater in Los Angeles by Bobby the Brain Heenan. Later that evening, during Hulk Hogan's induction, he was seen clapping when his old rival came on stage. Paul Orndorff's passing marks the end of an era for many wrestling fans, but his impact on the sport remains undeniable. Through his legendary feuds, historic moments at WrestleMania, and devoted training of future talent, he proved time and again why he deserved the moniker Mr. Wonderful. We hope this tribute has offered insight into his extraordinary career and personal struggles. Thank you for watching and honoring the life of Paul Orndorff. Feel free to share your own memories or favorite matches of this WWE Hall of Famer in the comments below.